Welcome back to another episode of Stacking Dennys. I'm Jordan McAbee of RotoBaller. My co-host Nick Giffen of the Action Network. Chase Briscoe saves enough fuel, ends up in victory lane at Pocono Raceway. One of the lowest rated races of the year. Once again, ends up out of the 19 races of the season on Jeff Gluck's poll. It ranked number 16, but we got a new winner. We got some kind of drama at the end. We got some more fuel mileage, another fuel mileage race similar to Michigan a few weeks ago. Chase Briscoe in victory lane gets his first win for Joe Gibbs Racing. He leads 72 of the 160 laps. Denny Hamlin, the favorite all week, the post practice and qualifying favorite, finished second. Ryan Blaney, Chris Buescher, Chase Elliott, top five. We got John Hunter Nemechek with a top 10 finish, finishing sixth. Kyle Larson ends up seventh. Ryan Preece, Brad Keselowski, eighth and ninth for an RFK top 10 sweep once again, just like at Michigan. And Austin Cindric rounding out the top 10. But like I said, Nick, 11th different winner this season. We talked about it last week, whether we could get more than 16 winners. We got our 11th on Sunday. We got Atlanta this weekend. Chase Briscoe in victory lane. What do you think of the race?
Honestly, the race was good for about half of it. We saw drivers come through the field. We saw Blaney come through the field twice. Excuse me. So, there was definitely drivers that could drive their way up through the field. There was drivers that fell back through the field. There was a whole bunch of different strategies. But then that final stage, because of the rain delay, a couple hours rain delay, cooler temperatures starting to get in towards twilight, the passing just went away. And we've seen this be a problem with the car multiple times. We've seen as it gets towards twilight or into the nighttime, the passing just goes down a little bit. So it was an okay race. I actually ended up voting, I think, no in the good race poll, simply because that whole last stage was just nothing. I think maybe there were two passes inside the top 20 over the last 20 laps, something like that. I was counting, or maybe it was the top 10. I forget the exact number, but it was pretty much no passing. And if you can't pass the leader who's fuel saving, that's pretty crazy. And I've seen some people, suggest wrongly, in my opinion, that Denny Hamlin was just letting Chase Briscoe win. That would be the dumbest thing ever, because those 5 playoff points matter. We've seen, Denny Hamlin miss out on getting to the playoffs by 5 playoff points before, when Ross Chastain did the Hail Melon. So, this is definitely something where if Denny Hamlin wants those 5 playoff points, there will be other chances for Chase Briscoe to win. Denny Hamlin wants to get every win he can because he's never won a championship. Plus, Ryan Blaney is going to be trying to pass Denny Hamlin and Chase Briscoe no matter what. So did Ryan Blaney just sit there and let Chase Briscoe win? No, of course not. And it was just evidence from the whole top 10. I think there were, like I said, 2 passes in the top 10 in the final 20 laps. So it was just too hard to pass.
Yeah, that was my intrusive thoughts one on that one, suggesting that maybe Hamlin was letting Briscoe in. But I, for the life of me, could not figure out why the hell Denny Hamlin could not pass Chase Briscoe. And it is just it's an unfortunate, once again, black mark or black eye on this car. Because I think if you take that aspect out of it, I think if Briscoe ran out of fuel and Hamlin won, I think the yes votes, I think that would have ended up being a good race on the poll, despite the no passing at the end. And it's kind of my whine about it, because people will complain how races weren't good or bad based on a last lap pass, but they're also voting no in a poll based on a singular happening at the end with the fuel mileage saving. So before that, and in stage 1 and stage 2, I thought it was a great race, and I don't like Pocono races. The strategy was very exciting, and I'll tell you what, the one thing I think we can all agree on with this race is that the only presenter of races that could make that type of bullshit at the end where Briscoe couldn't get past interesting and exciting is Amazon Prime, and that's exactly what they did.
Yep.
That was fun to watch, despite the fact that we were watching bullshit happen. And I think that is a testament to how good Amazon Prime is. Of course, that was their last race of the season, their last broadcast of the season. But yeah, it was. I mean, that's awful. And the fact that it wasn't really addressed and won't be addressed by NASCAR is another full issue on the whole matter. But up until then, I thought it was a good race, and like I said, I'm not a big Pocono guy, but overall, I thought it was fun having the different strategies, everything else playing out. Brad Keselowski, his crew chief, having one of the biggest fumbles I've seen in a long time, and we're critical of some dumb crew chief strategies. That one was idiotic. Oh, yeah. Not knowing that pit road was closed, having potentially the car to win. I mean, Brad Keselowski had a fast car. Pitted when the pits were closed, and then they got a bad timed caution when you thought they could maybe get back up there and challenge for the win again. But that was once again, that was all the passing we saw was during that time. When he got that penalty and afterwards, Keselowski is flying through the field, and it's just unfortunate that wasn't able to happen at the end, because you're right. Keselowski at the end, he ended up, where did I say he ended up? Ninth. If he was able to pass like he was earlier in the race, he would have finished top 5. But Keselowski, he was stuck in 13th in those last 20 laps it felt like forever, and it was just, you couldn't pass. But yeah, overall, I don't think I actually voted on the poll, and I would make the same decision now, because I am so neutral on whether it was good or not. That ending left such a sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah, exactly. Like I didn't hate the race. I think I picked no, just because, like you said, the end left such a sour taste. And I like you, liked most of the first half, 2/3 of that race until we got to stage 3. I thought it was very interesting and compelling. And the car did a lot better in the heat of the day, but as it cooled off again, it just became hard to pass.
Yeah. Few other takeaways from that race. Another weekend where Larson was just not very good. Like I said, he ended up 7th. He had what I call, I'm terming a Kyle Larson race, where they come off the truck slow. They are slow in the beginning portion of the race, and they do their thing, and they finish 7th or 8th. He finished 7th. William Byron wrecked after practice, had a rocket in practice, wrecked, started in the back. He got up to the top 5. I don't remember what happened to him to finish 27th. I have no idea what the hell happened to William Byron in that race. Also, Tyler Reddick,
I think just got on a bad strategy or something, or maybe had a bad last pit stop or something. But I don't know otherwise.
I at the end of the race, I'm like, what the hell happened to William Byron?
They never really covered it, which maybe was the only downside of Amazon's coverage,
right?
Because William Byron had a top 5 car for most of the day. I thought it was a race between Hamlin, Blaney, Byron, and the RFK cars for the win. Not Priest, but Buescher and Kez. I thought those were the 5 best cars through most of the race. And all of a sudden, they don't say what happened to one of the best cars, which is, of course, William Byron. So
yeah,
was a little surprised by that.
Big oversight by them for sure. Another guy that he finished 3rd in stage 1. Wasn't super a factor, but he was stronger than he finished, was Tyler Reddick. He finished a lap down. I don't remember what happened to him or what they were doing. Because I was watching fastest laps all race, and Reddick only had a couple, and he ended up with the most in the race, which was the biggest surprise to me. He ended up with 22. I don't know if they pulled a Larson and went out there and just tried to get the fastest lap point after they were a lap down or what, but somehow Tyler Reddick ended up with the most fastest laps in that race, and I have no idea how.
Yeah, so he went to the garage actually briefly to, because of the brake rotors stuff. That Bubba Wallace and Riley Herbst had, and Reddick started to feel it. So they real quick, I think, went to the garage and then came back out and fix it. And somehow he only ended up a lap down, but he had clean air that whole last stint while other people were fuel saving. So he was just blast. I mean, he was just right ahead of Chase Briscoe. So he literally had clean air, was just blasting off fastest laps with fresh tires and full fuel. It was kind of a false most fastest laps, but it still was the most fastest laps.
Yeah, that sucks for people that I think Hamlin ended up with the second most. Anybody that bet Hamlin for that or anything like that. But Hamlin did have the single fastest lap. But yeah, biggest surprise I'd say is John Hunter Nemechek with another top 10 finish. That's a strong day for him. Obviously aided a lot by his late qualifying effort. He was able to qualify 4th. and then parlayed that to a top 10 finish for him.
Yeah, you still got to keep that track position all day, and he did.
Yeah. Yeah, he had a driver rating of 94.2, which was right behind Ryan Blaney. So
probably the highest of his career, I would guess. Let me see. John Hunter Nemechek, driver rating, sort. He had one other that was higher. Bristol last year, he had a 99.2.
That was the tire race. He was one of the really good ones on the shitty tire.
Exactly.
But yeah, so Briscoe gets his first win with Joe Gibbs Racing. You know, we've been talking about him. I think our word for word last week's episode about him was when he's finally going to put together a whole race, get the win, like as we expect with him and Joe Gibbs Racing in this top tier equipment. And I would say somewhat quietly, Chase Briscoe has 6 top 5 finishes, which is this season now, which is one less than Ryan Blaney. It's one less than William Byron, one less than Christopher Bell. Chase Briscoe is quietly putting together a very good season. And I think, you know, this win might just like launch him into, you know, maybe a couple here in these next before the playoffs start. So good for him on getting to victory lane. I think it would have been nicer to see him actually go out there and win a race instead of doing it on fuel mileage saving. But still, a win is a win. He is in the playoffs, and
I'll tell you what, I don't remember what his odds were to win after practice and qualifying.
I want to say they were like 35.
Not after. It was that was midweek. After practice and qualifying, it was much shorter. I don't remember exactly what it was, but even if it was like 18-1 or something, my model had him at 5.94% to win, which I'm glad is 0.0594, which is about plus 1580 as fair, 1585. So if there was an 18-1 out there or 20-1, should have bet that. So a little oversight on my part there, not betting Chase Briscoe to win in my post practice and qualifying model.
Yeah, it was one of those situations. You know, we knew Denny Hamlin had an amazing car, and he's always good at Pocono. But you know, his teammate qualifying up there with him was likely to be strong as well. So, yeah, definitely. I definitely wish I would have had some Briscoe money, but
for sure
didn't either.
And that's the thing, when you have that kind of speed, I think he was like 6th or 7th in my flags metric. So when you have that kind of speed, you know, it's just one of those things where, especially at a race like Pocono, where strategy comes into play, can kind of shake things up. You got to trust that number and bet it. So he was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th in flags. But you kind of just have to trust the flags number and then the model number and a strategy type race like Pocono. And that's why he's 5.9% to win, because Pocono can throw some strategy. I mean, we see it happen a lot where not always the fastest car wins at Pocono. And in this case, the fastest car didn't win. It was the car with the track position at the end of the race, who was fast most of the race, hanging out inside that top 5 or 10, but was the one that was able to grab that track position late and keep the win.
This also, so this upcoming race, this weekend's race, is the 18th race of the season. So we're officially halfway through the year after Atlanta this week. We're inching closer to the playoffs, like I said. And then we start the in-season tournament as well this weekend. So a lot to go over here on Stacking Dennys heading into the EchoPark Speedway. I refuse to call it Atlanta anymore. I think I'm just going to, and I'm going to correct anybody that calls it Atlanta.
I'm only going to call it Atlanta.
EchoPark Speedway.
No, Atlanta Motor Speedway.
But yeah, so our yearly race from Pocono is over with. You got any other takeaways from that race?
Not really. I thought flags did pretty well again. It wasn't obviously perfect, but very good. It identified, you know, Blaney, Busher, Kez as some of those best cars. And then we know Hamlin's Hamlin. He kind of is We talk like fakers, makers, and shakers and whatever. Like he's the guy that always outperforms his flags. So we kind of know that, but it had Austin Cindric. He finished 10th. So flags, another good win for flags there this weekend in terms of just pure speed. It had William Byron as the best non-Ford, ahead of Denny Hamlin, of course. But Hamlin, like I said, he has his little asterisk mark. Shout out to iFantasy Race for his asterisk mark report, but he gets an asterisk mark for flags because of just who he is. He's kind of like Kevin Harvick of 5 or 8 years ago. Harvick would never top those like 5 or 10 lap averages, but would always be fast in the race. So you kind of couldn't really rely on practice speeds with Kevin Harvick.
Yeah. Well, back with Harvick, you always knew Harvick was good when he ran a ton of laps. Because if they never came in and made adjustments. But yeah, Hamlin, I was a little concerned after practice. I'm like, maybe they kind of missed it this weekend. Then he went and put it on the pole, and I'm like, okay, nope, this is still Denny Hamlin week. But yeah, my algorithm had it Hamlin, Byron, Buescher was the top 3, and I was happy with that. I think Byron definitely had the top 5 car, and Buescher was there all day. So
I had Hamlin, Blaney, Byron as Hamlin, Blaney, Byron, which I think were pretty close to the top 3, along with Buescher, who was he was 6th in mine.
Yeah,
with Reddick ahead, and for some reason Christopher Bell barely ahead. But I think a lot of it is just overall performance, right? Christopher Bell overall has had a better performance than Chase Briscoe this year.
Yeah. I think Blaney definitely would have had a much better chance had he qualified a little bit better, but him starting back in 18th kind of he had to work to get up there.
Yep. That's all I got for Pocono.
So playoff standings, 15 of the 16. Well, so the cut line, I don't know how to word this correctly. Josh Berry's now 16th in points. So the only guy under 16th in points that's in the playoffs right now is SVG, who's in 31st. So that puts the cut line, or the driver, first guy out, AJ Allmendinger. First guy out is Ryan Preece. Second guy out is AJ Allmendinger. There we go. Cut line is now Alex Bowman, who falls a spot. Bubba Wallace is barely above Bowman by 9 points. And then Buescher moves up. He's got an 18-point gap from the cut line. But Bowman is now the first guy out if we get another winner outside of the top 16 in points, which can certainly happen. We have Atlanta this weekend. We have a couple road courses coming up. Yep. Never know. I mean, Briscoe was another guy. But Briscoe gets his win, locks himself in. Tyler Reddick's finish, brings him down to 7th in points. Now, I'm not ringing the bell and saying that Tyler Reddick is in trouble, but you have a couple if he wrecks out at Atlanta early and
get a couple new race winners,
and he has a Mexico City performance at Sonoma or something, we could be talking about Tyler Reddick being on the cut line and having to worry about getting into these playoffs this year. But overall, William Byron's still the leader despite his bad finish at Pocono. He's got 54-point lead on Larson. I think it's going to take a lot for him to mess that up. Denny Hamlin was in 3rd despite having one less race than everybody else. Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott, the top 5. Blaney moves up a spot to 6th. Briscoe with his win moves up to 9th. Like I said, Buescher moved up a couple spots. And, not a ton of changes elsewhere. Keselowski moves up to 30th. Definitely still in that need-to-win mode. I thought for sure we were going to get I was rooting so hard in race for Brad Keselowski to win at Pocono.
Yep.
Because of the situation with the points and everything.
Yep.
Still glad that we got a new winner there.
Yeah, for sure. And I was doubting it, but that's a new winner. That's another driver that's closer to 16 winners, right? So certainly possible if we get an Atlanta winner that could shake things up, and then 2 road courses back to back. If we get a McDowell and a Suarez or something like that, or a Ty Gibbs, Indy could be another, an Allmendinger. Indy could be another track position type race where we could get a new winner, like Pocono. And then we got Glenn, we got Daytona. Austin Dillon could win Richmond again. I mean, we have a path to more than 16 winners for sure.
Yeah, and that was the good thing I think about Briscoe winning this race, is getting that 11th winner and potentially moving forward. It should be a fun one. Atlanta on Saturday night. We got a Saturday night race. Typically don't have a lot of those, so should be a good one this weekend.
I love super speedway races though, pseudo speedway, because I can just get the model done early week. Starting position doesn't matter. It has no effect on predicting finishing position when you take into the other factors as well, right? Like a driver rating over the course of the year, or things, average running positions and past performances at super speedway tracks. Like once you factor in those other things, starting position doesn't add any extra new information on terms of figuring out finishing position. So I can run my model early week. I run it early week anyway without starting position, but then after practice and qualifying, I then practice and qualifying data and get a new version of the model, an updated version of it. But this week, there's going to be no updated version. It's going to be the same model. I'll just end up having the starting position, and then you can calculate DraftKings points from there. But it's great because my model from today to Saturday before the race starts is not going to change in terms of finishing position projections.
Yeah, it's nice to have a week like because after the initial off week, for guys like me and you that create content every week, we don't get a break. It's every single week from here on out. So it's nice to have one of these quote unquote easy weeks. With Atlanta. Looking through these standings a little bit more, like I said, Chase Briscoe sitting there with 6 top 5 finishes, another number of 6. Bubba Wallace gets his 6th DNF of the season. Somehow still 12th in points, but man, he is, and a big part of his 12th in points is the 110 stage points, but 6 DNFs for him this year is just a brutal season. We talk a lot about,
and again, only one of those has been driver error. That was that crash in Texas that he caused.
Man, I don't know what it is about him and brakes in Pocono, but that was one of the questions after his brake rotor went this last week, was how did that compare to the when he was with Petty and his brakes exploded. Not a good track to lose brakes.
No, and it sucks because he's usually pretty good at the big 2.5 mile flat tracks, Pocono and Indy. And he looked really good in practice, and he never really got track position, but he was making his way forward, and I think he probably could have been there for a top 10 in the end, aside brake rotor stuff aside. Like he was one of the drivers that was making his way forward.
Yeah, he just had one of those shitty weekends because like you said, was top 5 in practice, went out to qualify and his car wouldn't start, which is obviously an issue. So he had to start in the back, and then the brake rotor failure. Still kicking myself for not fading him with my qualifier lineup, because if I would have went with literally anybody else, I would have qualified this past weekend. That's frustrating, but it is what it is. That's the good old DFS. It's nice to be close, but I typically don't play those qualifier contests, and I just had a weird wanting to do so this past weekend, and I think I finished 4th or something, but Bubba Wallace isn't making my shit list for that.
No, and I'm trying to think. I wrote up for DFS. Let me go to my article here. Great American Getaway. There we go. So I had Blaney Byron, which again, nobody knows what happened to Byron. Bubba blew his rotors. Josh Berry finished 12th as like my core. And then I said pick a dominator. Hamlin, Chris Buescher were my top 2 in dominators, but then it was a toss-up between a bunch of other drivers. So I was like one dominator. Had Austin Cindric and Ryan Preece, and they all did really well. Like it was good, but Bubba Wallace was the one that would have like crashed any team on that, and then Byron. But I thought all those were still solid picks despite the results. It's just you don't know who's going to have the horrible pit stop at the end or the horrible strategy, or you don't know who's going to have the brake rotor failing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, my article was similar. I the typical cash guys with place differential, and then I said pick Hamlin or Busher. And then
my 1-2 in dominators.
My biggest tournament leverage pick was Keselowski. I was just locked in on Keselowski, and on my live stream,
I loved Keselowski.
Yeah, I think on my live stream I ended up with like 60% of him in lineups. So then when he had the first mistake, I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. And then when he got caught in that caution too, I'm like,
yeah, this
is my DFS year. Like. Yeah, I mean, I can't complain. I'm ahead on the year. I should not complain, but it's frustrating sometimes.
For sure, I hear you.
All right. Anything else from these standings before we get to the in-season tournament?
Nope. Let's move to that.
Hell yeah! I know you're excited about that. So some sports books do have odds up for the winner. I don't know the best way to let me get this bracket up and we'll share it on the screen here. We can talk about it.
So much stuff to talk about with this tournament, like from betting to filling out your bracket, all that kind of stuff.
Have you filled out a bracket?
I have. I did the one on NASCAR.com.
Okay,
I know DraftKings has a money bracket as well, but I haven't done that.
All right, let me. Oh, this isn't going to let me like.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll keep it like it was.
That way is good.
Like this?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, some very interesting matchups here. Particularly if you get out of the first round, and what I'm looking at is the bottom right quadrant, because we go from Atlanta to the Chicago Street Course. Sorry, we go from EchoPark Speedway to the Chicago Street Course. And so if you get out of EchoPark, now all of a sudden there's a ton of good road course racers in this bottom right corner. We got McDowell, Allmendinger, Gibbs, Cindric, Busher all in there.
Even Gilliland.
I mean, yeah, even Gilliland and Zane Smith can be,
yeah. Justin Haley finished second at the Chicago Street Course one year. I mean,
yeah,
that whole bottom right can have good road course races.
And
especially
you know what? Yeah. What's crazy is this first round, like this. I would say, I'm not going to say this. I'm not going to sit here and say this is more difficult than the NCAA tournament bracket, but this would be extremely difficult to get 100% correct.
Honestly, I think this is harder than the NCAA tournament because you don't have in the first round any 98 2% matchups. You know, none of these are 98% 2%. None of these are even close to that. If you look at, like, for example, the DraftKings odds, I think the biggest favorite on any of the matchups are minus 310, which is about 75-25. And actually, when you remove the juice, it's more like 70-30. And I think that's a little ridiculous. But, you know, for me, when I look at these matchups here, the highest percentage I have on any one matchup is 74%. But every other one besides that is under 70% for the favorite.
That's a good question. Can we get the Giffen guide to the NASCAR bracket like you do for your NCAA?
Yes. I'm probably writing that tomorrow.
Hell yeah. But it's noteworthy. One, like, I know a lot of people were complaining about this in-season tournament, not understanding the point of it. But one thing that it does do, in addition to giving content for TNT, is it's opening up a lot of new or additional betting markets. You know, we're getting a ton of head-to-heads this week. And with this being pseudo speedway. Like, it's not a Daytona or Talladega, but it's kind of similar. There are a lot of matchups where we're getting like plus 200, plus 250. Is it the week to just bet those and blindly bet them? Or are we still, like you said, the 70-30 thing where it's not worth it?
It just depends. It depends on the specific matchup. I do have a couple matchups where you can bet the favorite because Atlanta isn't Daytona pure chaos, right?
Right.
Talladega and Atlanta sometimes tend to favor the favorites a little more than chaos crazy Daytona. So I do have some value on some favorites in some of these matchups. For example, I think if we look at Blaney versus Hocevar, I have value on Blaney at some of the sports books out there, like minus 150, where Blaney is at MGM. I technically have value on him there. Now, I'm not saying go bet that. I'm just saying I technically do. I like to not just only go with the model, but also go with kind of common sense and say, I think my model's a little too generous to the favorites. So I'm not going to bet a ton of favorites here, but I do think there are certain spots where there may be a little bit of value on some of the favorites.
Mm-hmm. I'm pulling up the odds here real quick as far as the in-season tournament goes and favorites to win the whole thing. Looking at Bet365, William Byron and Denny Hamlin are the co-favorites to win. Kyle Larson and Reddick are up there. Is there any guys that you're betting to win this thing yet? Who
Yes.
you got? Because I got someone in mind, and I don't know if you're gonna like it.
I got somebody in mind. I don't know you're gonna like it.
Oh boy!
But I bet him 70-1 at DraftKings. And DraftKings, you have to go to NASCAR Cup Series Championship, and then for some reason it's under Cup Series Championship. So he's the only driver that's 70-1 at DraftKings. That's Daniel Suarez.
I don't hate that at all. I mean, I don't like him, but I think that's a solid value.
Look what happens if he wins his matchup here at Atlanta. He probably gets Joey Logano at a road course. Probably advance him there. Then he gets Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, Ty Dillon, or Denny Hamlin at a road course. He probably beats them. So all of a sudden he's in the Final Four. Dover's a good track for him. He's always been good at the concrete tracks, especially Dover. Xfinity days especially, he'd always win there. And then he just needs the track position Indy thing to happen. There is a reasonable 70-1 path there for Daniel Suarez.
I'm gonna bet Daniel Suarez.
And what I'm hoping, you get to Dover, he's there, you can do the cash out option, right?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm betting Daniel Suarez.
Me too.
I don't even have a rebuttal for no there, which is crazy for me.
Like he's the best road course racer in his bracket, other than maybe Bowman, but he's probably facing Logano next round. Not guaranteed, but probably. In terms of I have Joey Logano over Alex Bowman in my model, 59%, right? 60%, let's say, over Alex Bowman. So 60-40, he faces Joey Logano next round. And even if he faces Bowman, he can still beat Bowman in a road course race.
The only concern I think might be Busch. He's shown some speed on road courses, but again, it could end up being a toss-up. And Suarez has certainly shown speed at road courses too. So, damn.
I'll say at Sonoma, both Suarez and Kyle Busch are pretty good. So, yeah, that one is a toss-up if he faces Busch. But Busch first has to get past Brad Keselowski at a drafting track. Then probably not guaranteed, but probably has to get past Denny Hamlin at Chicago Street Course, and there's no guarantee of that.
That is, yes, I like that pick a lot.
And you can always reevaluate the Suarez bet if he makes the Final Four or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yep. Can you guess who mine is?
No, I cannot. Don't tell me it's my other guy that I was thinking about, but didn't end up betting. I'm not going to say who.
Guy?
I'm not going to say.
I haven't looked around, so this might not be the best number on him, but at this number, I like it. Ty Gibbs, 50-1. Good at road courses, very good at Dover. Then all he needs is Indy. I'm betting on two guys I hate. I'm betting on two guys that I hate. I'm betting on Daniel Suarez and Ty Gibbs.
I 100% agree with you. That was whoa. What the hell? I have a new phone. I don't know if you could hear that. I have a new phone, and like for some reason it just Gemini'd or something. Whatever this AI service thing is. I didn't mean to do that. But yes, I fully agree with you. Ty Gibbs 50-1. That was actually who it was.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page.
I actually love that part of the bracket as well. If you can find something like longer than 30, I don't think I like it at 30, but longer than 30 on Austin Cindric, I like that. We expect him to be the best drafter in his matchup versus Zane Smith. Then you have Chicago Street Course. Then you have Sonoma. And then all of a sudden, Dover. He's been pretty good at Dover. And Indy, I actually think Indy is like revenge game narrative for Austin Cindric because his dad got fired at Indy from the team.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can see Austin Cindric winning this one too. But we're going to have one of Michael McDowell, AJ Allmendinger, Ty Gibbs, Justin Haley, Zane Smith, Austin Cindric, Chris Buescher, or Todd Gilliland in the Final Four. And the highest of those drivers in points is Chris Buescher, who's 11th in points.
Yeah, that bottom right corner of the bracket is very road course heavy, so it's very strong for this tournament. But overall, it's kind of a weak one, especially when you compare it to the top right. We got Larson versus Reddick in the first round, Blaney versus Hocevar in the first round. I mean, hell, even Priest and Byron's a decent matchup in the first round.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, look at that. Like though, I mean, that's the group of death, right? If you think of like soccer, and they always like the World Cup, they have the group of death where there's like the hardest group. This is definitely the group of death. Would be that top right quadrant. I wish they'd have labeled him like, you know, some of the like the Petty bracket, the Earnhardt bracket, the Johnson bracket, and the Gordon bracket or something. You know, I think that would have been so cool. But yeah, I think that top right is easily the group of death. There's definitely, you know, top left is good. You got Bowman, Busch, Hamlin, Logano, and then bottom left, you know, you got Chase Elliott, you got Bell, Chastain. So there's some good drivers in those other brackets, but that top right is the group of death, and then they face like the group of life in the bottom right in the Final Four.
Yeah, I would like if we're doing strength, I would say bottom left is the weakest out of these four. Just overall.
Yeah, it's close between bottom left and bottom right. It's close.
I think bottom right is strongest for this set of races, but overall,
I agree with that.
Yeah. But realistically, if Bell and Elliott get through the first round on the bottom left, it should be those two in the Elite Eight, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Here's an interesting thing. I have the number 31 seed favored over the number 2 seed. I have Noah Gragson favored over Chase Briscoe this week in my model.
I like that.
Not just like relative to the odds. I mean, actually favored. I have this at Noah Gragson 54% to win, Chase Briscoe 46% to win. So there's your leverage spot if you're going for bracket madness stuff.
I'm definitely going to have to hopefully there's a good way to share the brackets. I'm going to do mine, and then me and you can compare as this thing goes on how we both do come up with a scoring system here. But Yeah. Looking at, I definitely think you could make. I'm gonna retract. I think it would be more difficult to make a perfect bracket with this. And this is, we should do something to try to get the pure NBA NASCAR's not a sport guys fired up by doing by making these statements of this bracket is more challenging and difficult than your basketball bracket.
It absolutely is. I mean, you could, like I said, just calculating off the first round, the odds of getting a perfect bracket in the first round are absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
So you got 31/2. Is that your official pick? Is that your like biggest upset?
Yes.
I mean, it would be. No matter what. You're not gonna pick Ty Dillon over Hamlin, but
no. Definitely taking Gregson over Briscoe as my big upset.
Mm-hmm. I mean, next best. If I was picking it, and this is a little fan in me, but I mean, Gilliland over Buescher. That's another big upset that could happen. Gilliland races well here.
Absolutely.
Stenhouse over Bell could happen.
Yep.
I mean, all of these could happen.
All of these could happen.
Yeah.
Jones over Chastain.
Yep.
You know, I mean, that's another ripe for the picking one there. By seed, it's not as big, but I mean, Austin Dillon over Chase Elliott, right? Like, Austin Dillon's a multiple-time super speedway winner.
Mm-hmm.
That can happen. Stenhouse over Bell, like you said.
I mean, Suarez over Bubba is still a
Logano over Bowman. It's a seed upset. This seating, the only dumb thing was the seating about this, but
yeah,
I actually kind of love it because it makes it more chaotic, and I'm totally cool with that.
It makes it chaotic, and it gives us this, like, like now all of a sudden we have to, and like I said, we're getting all these matchups, which I love. I love when betting markets expand, and I like that these books are doing this. Can't ask for more. But I am to the point, like, I think I might take all of the underdogs in all of these matchups and just do a round robin.
I love that. I love that idea.
Just to have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic idea. So yeah, Gregson over Briscoe is my big one. And then by betting value, Jones over Chastain is my other one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you were to say what are your favorite head-to-head matchups by betting value, I would have Jones over Chastain as my second to Gregson over Briscoe.
I just officially locked in Suarez to win.
I love it.
But
I actually need to put more on it because I need to put more on it because I, like you, in non-official bets, right? I have my like Action app tracked official bets that I recommend tailing these or whatever. But in my DGen bets, I did like you, and I bet pretty much all the plus money matchups and stuff. I didn't think the round robin. That's fantastic. So I actually have to reload my DraftKings account because I've bet so much this week on DraftKings. I bet a bunch of fastest lap things, like all my DGen bets that I do to like keep my account soft. I bet those. And then, when I find really good value, I smash those like crazy hard. But I've made a lot of DGen bets this week already.
So my official bets on my card this week that I put in the RotoBaller Discord, one of them was Stenhouse opened at most fastest laps at 65-1. I don't know if DraftKings forgot that Stenhouse had the most fastest laps here earlier this season. So I had to hit 65-1, and then Hocevar has been putting a ton of fastest laps up on drafting tracks this year. He opened at 22-1, so I hit that as well.
We're getting ahead of ourselves here.
I know. I'm just I'm in the betting
space. I took Daniel Suarez 70-1. I just reloaded some more on DraftKings just to have it.
But I'm gonna find myself betting like almost every underdog here and around robining these. Gilly plus 150 over Busher, Haley plus 155 over Gibbs.
Yeah.
Gregson plus 150 over Briscoe.
Jones plus 160, whatever it is, plus 170 over Chastain.
Yep.
I mean, heck, Ty Dillon over Denny isn't a bad one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a fun week, and it's always good when we have a lot more stuff to bet on as well. Let me see here. I wish we would get odds for like to make the final 4 or to make the final 8. That would be my favorite thing right now.
Yeah.
All right, what else you got for this in-season tournament?
I wish places had like to make a certain round. You know what I mean? Like in NCAA tournament, you can bet to make the Final Four. Like I wish we had to make the Final Four in this, but we don't. I don't see anywhere that does. It's all just outright, and then the matchups. But and then filling out the bracket. So again, finding leverage in your bracket is important. I think you don't have to find leverage necessarily later because there's so much leverage earlier. I have Gregson, like I said, favored over Briscoe, but Briscoe is guarantee you if you're doing a bracket, Briscoe will be picked more than Gregson. Just because you got the 2 versus the 31. You've got the guy that just won a race versus the guy that's sitting 32nd in points or something. So this is all about leverage when you're doing a bracket. You don't need to get too crazy with leverage because this thing is going to be so unpredictable anyway. But just small leverage spots. That's all you need because this is going to be massively unpredictable, more than the NCAA tournament unpredictable. I mean, we're talking NCAA tournament. You get to the Final Four and a team is still minus 300 to win, right? Like, you're not going to have somebody minus 300 to win in the Final Four here at all. Unless you get like Larson versus Gilliland or something at Dover.
Right.
Which,
yeah.
You know,
which even if with those crazy odds, so Matt says DraftKings not letting you round robin them. That's stupid.
Damn. Maybe they will later in the week.
That's annoying. They let you parlay it, but they don't let you round robin it.
That's annoying. I mean, just do every parlay combination manually.
I was gonna say, yeah, you could.
That's
do
a round robin.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but it's a way to get around it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you got anything else?
Not on the tournament.
All right, we are on to EchoPark Speedway, or as Nick calls it, Atlanta Motor Speedway. First race here this season. Christopher Bell won it, leading the final lap and the final lap only. Carson Hocevar, I can't talk. Carson Hocevar, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. were the top 5. Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Chastain, Bubba Wallace, and John Hunter Nemechek, top 10. Let me see. Joey Logano led the most laps in that race. Josh Berry led 56 laps, won the first stage. Cindric led 47 laps. Those guys started in the first 2 rows. Blaney started on the pole, only led 1 lap. That's kind of what a lot of people are expecting heading into this race. Penske should be the team to beat when it comes to racing and being up front. The Fords should dominate qualifying. It's just how it's been at Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta this year, outside of Chase Briscoe's random Daytona 500 pole. But like Talladega and even this Atlanta race, if you look at the starting lineups, Ford. They just have the advantage here. One guy I noticed, I know you don't like betting on qualifying, but Front Row Motorsports has decent speed here at Atlanta or EchoPark, and Noah Gregson sitting at 50-1 to win the pole. I don't love it, but I don't mind throwing $5 on it just because of Front Row and their speed. Zane Smith just won the pole at Talladega.
Do you think
Todd
Noah
Gillen,
Gregson has a better chance to win the pole or win the race?
race?
Bet him at 65-1 to win the race instead, or 75-1 at Circa if you have that.
That makes sense.
Especially because if he qualifies around like 10th, like he did earlier this year at Atlanta, he's going to shorten to 50-1 or something. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I already tracked Noah Gregson to win 65-1 in the app. I actually bet him 75 at Circa, but I'm not tracking Circa picks in the app. So I tracked it at 65, which was best available at DraftKings.
Did you notice this? MGM has to reach finals, semifinals, and quarterfinals.
Oh, they must have posted it last little bit because that was not up earlier today.
Not to take away from or to go back, but got to when
NASCAR in-season challenge. Oh, wow. Oh, nice. Perfect. So, yeah, to reach the semifinals, what is Daniel Suarez? Plus 360? These odds are horrible, dude. Wow. Those are kind of unbettable.
Oh, I see it now.
I mean, aside from the bottom right quadrant, yeah, to reach the semifinals is kind of unbettable.
Wow.
Cindric's plus 250. I don't hate that. But again, I mean, you're looking at potentially a Cindric versus Buescher road course matchup.
I kind of never mind. I was thinking Blaney to reach semifinals plus 600. But if he makes it through the first round, he's hitting Larson or Reddick round 2. And that's
especially at Chicago. I think that would be the worst street course or road course to hit them at is on the streets.
Yeah. Yeah, these hopefully we get a book that puts some better odds out there. MGM's typically not very good.
Yeah. No, these are pretty. I want to pull these odds in later, like after I do this and then running hot. I'll pull these odds in and see if there's any value in any of the regions to make the semifinals. To reach the quarterfinals, you just need to win twice. So is anybody undervalued to win twice? What do you think Ty Dillon would be versus Brad Keselowski at a road course? Probably even money, right? Like just from what we think versus not what the books think.
I'm curious. I'm pulling up Ty Dillon 28th at Coda, 33rd at Mexico City. So small sample size, not great.
Yeah, but pull all his other races when he was like with Jermaine,
right?
You know, these other ones. Because I mean, let's just say he's which my model has 33% versus Denny Hamlin, and then 50% versus Brad Keselowski. That would be 5-1 as fair odds. Now, Kyle Busch, maybe not 50%, but maybe 30% or something, or another 33%, right? Even then, 0.3333 times that is 8-1. So it's like, I don't hate Ty Dillon at 11-1 at BetMGM to make the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm also kind of throwing around Zane Smith and John Hunter Nemechek. Maybe not Zane Smith. John Hunter Nemechek. John Hunter Nemechek beats Barry. We talked about Austin Dillon potentially upsetting Chase Elliott. So you got Austin Dillon versus John Hunter Nemechek.
Yeah.
At Chicago.
Yep.
I wish Nemechek was like in that 10-1 range.
Yeah,
If he was there, I would bet that.
Yeah.
But plus 550 is kind of like, it's kind of catching my eye. I'm not jumping to bet it by any means. But yeah, I can see the path with Ty Dillon for sure.
I kind of like that. Honestly, I might actually bet that. Road course. Pull Ty Dillon up. Ty Dillon. Yeah, like, he's not amazing, but he has finishes of 15th, 16th, 19th. You know,
man, Hamlin is the favorite to make the quarterfinal. Can we get a no option on this, please?
That'd be awesome.
Because even if he does beat Ty Dillon this round, if he runs into Busch next round, I would take Busch over Hamlin at a road course.
Mm-hmm. I would absolutely. Brad Keselowski, Ty Dillon.
Well, okay. So what if you just bet Kyle Busch plus 150 and Brad Keselowski plus 260?
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, they've got to beat Denny Hamlin or Ty Dillon at a road course.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, makes sense. And then bet Ty Dillon anyway, because you can size it right and profit as long as Denny Hamlin doesn't advance to the quarterfinals. I think. I'm going to pull up Brad Keselowski, not with Roger Penske, and compare him to Ty Dillon in road courses. So Brad joined in 2022, his own team. And then in races they've faced each other. Hold on. I got to sort here and sort here. Are there any races where they have not faced each other? Yeah, that one. All of these right here, all of 2024, because Ty Dillon did not race Cup. So let me pull out 2024. I'm just very curious on Ty Dillon versus Brad Keselowski. Brad has won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of 14 head-to-head at road courses. All right, so maybe that wasn't a 50-50.
I like the thought process though, and still 11-1. I can get behind.
Yeah, I can get behind 11 still, right? Like it's still a long way to 11-1. Yeah, I mean, Denny Hamlin to not make the Final Four is pretty awesome by betting the other options at BetMGM, right? Because you have, like you said, Brad at plus 260, Kyle Busch plus 150. I think you can size it to where you make money if Denny Hamlin doesn't. I haven't popped it all into anything yet, but I will later. Yeah, some interesting options here. I mean, I think the big thing is that lower right quadrant. Like anybody can make it to the like literally anybody can make it to the Final Four there. Zane's 13-1 to make it out of that quadrant. And Haley's 12-1. Gilly's 11-1. Actually, let me put all these drivers from that quadrant. I want to see something. We might have a negative hold situation here.
Your mind went exactly where 13, I went. I'm like, 12, wait a second. But
Gilliland,
we got McDowell at 325.
Yeah, McDowell 3.25, Cindric 2.5, Buescher 3.25. Okay, so we don't. And who else am I missing from that quadrant? Oh, Allmendinger.
Haley, Gibbs.
Allmendinger, McDowell. Gibbs is the other one. 3.75. Oh, yeah, we definitely don't have a negative hold situation there. No, actually, we have massive hold there. I just think like Zane 13, Justin Haley 12, Todd Gilliland 11, and then everybody else is under 4-1. That doesn't make sense given the tracks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't mind betting Gilliland and Zane, and if somehow they both advance, you're golden.
Yeah, I mean,
at 11 and 12 or 11 and 13-1.
I like betting Haley too.
Yeah,
Chicago Street Course, he could beat McDowell or Allmendinger. That's his best road course, is the Chicago Street Course.
I don't hate John Hunter Nemechek at 20-1 with how weak that bottom left corner is.
Yeah, a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to bet this, and like I said, hopefully more books come out with more odds, and we can really do it. But in addition to betting on Atlanta, we got stuff to bet on for this in race tournament as well. So let's get back to Atlanta though. Let's see here. Since in the next gen era, now obviously Atlanta was repaved and reconfigured a while back. When was the last time that they raced at the old Atlanta? Was it 2021? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Byron won the first race here. So they've had 7 races at Atlanta. Byron has 2 wins. Logano has 2 wins. Bell, Suarez, and Chase Elliott have a win. Best average finish at this new track is Ryan Blaney at 6.7. Chase Elliott's at 10.5. Suarez 11.0, as is Allmendinger with only 3 starts. 11.0 for Allmendinger. Chastain, Kyle Busch, Hocevar are right there. When it comes to average driver rating over these 7 races, Blaney and Logano are top 2. Byron and Elliott right behind them, and then Cindric. A lot of the similar names that we would expect to be up there are there. But as we've seen before, we can get somewhat surprising wins. Like obviously Suarez has that win. Christopher Bell was 25-1 earlier this year, even late in the race live betting. So I would consider that a relative long shot from where he was running all race and how that went. But yeah, it's kind of like you said, it's not like Daytona and Talladega. It's not the chaos. We do see the favorites and the fast cars running up front and getting to the front.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts going into the second Atlanta race of the year?
I did a lot of, like I said, did a lot of work on Atlanta this week, partly for the tournament, but just in general. And I think my biggest takeaway is DFS. Atlanta has kind of a Jekyll and Hyde personality. There have been 7 races, as you mentioned. 3 races have been pure chaos, where the trend line of like actual versus predicted is flat. You like literally almost 0% predictability. And there have been 3 races where there's been like 25% predictability, which is for a super speedway good. You know what I mean?
Right.
For a drafting track is good. And there was 1 race that was like right in between at like 13%. So I think the big takeaway is when you do your DFS lineups this week, you almost need to plan 2 types of races. You need to plan the pure chaos race. You need to plan the more predictable race. And I'm not saying more predictable as in it's like highly predictable. It's about as predictable as like a chaotic Bristol race, for example, still, right? But you get more separation from the leaders and the shit boxes and things like that. Your David Starrs, your Cody Wares, your BJ McLeods. They'll have a little bit of a chance in some of them, and sometimes they won't have a chance at all. So I think in like half your lineups, you got to just exclude those guys. And the other half of your lineups, you got to play them at their normal, like 10% super speedway amount or whatever, 12, 15% super speedway amount. So you end up with 7%, but you kind of have to separate how you build half your lineups from half your other lineups, because in those lineups where your BJ McLeods and those are excluded, that means there's more likely to have very good drivers running up front as well, because there's more predictability. So I think the biggest takeaway is like the Fantasy Labs, optimizer is gonna be awesome this week, because you can do that. Build 75 lineups this way, and then build 75 lineups that way.
The biggest takeaway DFS wise, and Atlanta is like, it's fun to build lineups for Daytona and Talladega. It is also fun to build lineups for Atlanta, but the thing is, I would say Atlanta requires more thought process with actual building of lineups. Because here's the fact of the matter: the number of races where we have seen one main dominator, and I'm talking lead 80 plus laps. It happened earlier this year. It happened last fall. That's 2. Highest was 46th in 2023. 140 in 2023. So that's 3, 4. 5 of the 7 races in the next gen era have seen one driver lead over 80 laps in an Atlanta race. And we've seen the pole sitters lead a ton of laps here as well. Now, with that being said, we look at the finishing order from earlier this year. Top 5, their starting positions were 32nd, 26th, 17th, 1st, and 34th. So, and first was Ryan Blaney, who, by the way, led 1 lap. So he's obviously not making the optimal. So there's still the stack the back strategy for DFS, but there's also the dominant, like you also have to think dominator of it, which is just a very weird shift to make mentally, because of it's just not normal for these super speedways. But yeah, it's definitely something to consider. And like you said, there's good optimizers on there. I have long said that the Fantasy Labs optimizer for speedways, super speedways in particular, is very good to use. That is one that is definitely recommended as well.
My other takeaway was around fastest laps. You talk about it for betting and stuff, and that's exactly where my other takeaway is. If you look at the 7 Atlanta races, to finish in the top 3 in fastest lap percentage, so I'm doing percentage of fastest laps versus laps you ran to account for those that crashed out earlier, things like that. You need at least 3.75% to finish in the top 3 of the fastest laps. Then I also filtered out, finished on either the first or second lap, near the lead lap or whatever, because that filters out your shit boxes and things like that. Because if you do include the shit boxes, amazingly enough, you can get, a decent chunk of fastest laps from like JJ Yaley or something, or Cody Ware, actually. Cody Ware had 7 earlier this year. But you can get a decent number of fastest laps from some of these drivers at some of these tracks, but more shitboxy. But let's say you also need to complete most of the laps, right? Because that gives your percentage of, or that gives your raw number of fastest laps higher as well, not just your percentage. What I noticed is the sweet spot for average running position is not all the way in the back. It's not running 29th, 30th, 34th, but it's, of course, not running near the front. It's around 14 to 24. There's only 3 that fell outside of that range. One was 26, one was 30, one was 31. Everybody else fell within 14 to 24. So you want to be running like mid-pack-ish, maybe a little back half of mid-pack to get those fastest laps. And we're talking, if I filter out those kind of, I'll call them outlying results, I guess, the list of teams that have performed inside that, all of those specific, ranges and things I've given are Stewart-Haas Racing 4 times. Now, that could be Cole Custer, I guess. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Gibbs twice, Legacy once, Colleague 3 times.
Allmendinger is good at fastest laps here.
Haley had 2 of them. He had a 13 fastest laps at Atlanta in 2022 and 10 in 2023 with Colleague. But we'll get back to that. So Colleague 3 times, Childress once, Hendrick 3 times, Penske once, Spire once, and Trackhouse twice, both with Ross Chastain. So you're noticing a lot of those middling teams, very little of these top teams. Penske once, Gibbs twice. The only one really is Hendrick 3 times. And one of those was Josh Berry, right, who was, let's say, not top tier at that moment. So you got to go to those mid-pack teams, not necessarily the ship boxes, not necessarily the top-tier drivers, but those mid-pack teams. You mentioned Stenhouse was 65 earlier. But, I think when I come over here to DraftKings and I look at most fastest laps, Noah Gragson 60 to 1. And actually funny, I didn't actually mention that team, but Justin Haley 50 to 1 in Aspire. I think we could see, for example, Austin Dillon, Eric Jones. Eric Jones often gets fastest laps. Now, it wasn't here, but at some other tracks he has. Noah Gragson, I know he crashed out of the most recent Atlanta race, but he had the highest percentage of fastest laps at Atlanta, I believe, in our most recent visit, or one of the visits that we were there. I think I shouldn't say most recent. I think it was one of the visits. He had the highest percentage of fastest laps. And then he had the most at Daytona this year. So that's something to notice, to think about is, Noah Gragson 60 to 1 for most fastest laps. So just kind of putting some parameters on these things where we can get some drivers with some fast laps.
I'm pulling it up now, but I want to say that so far this year, that Chevy has had a kind of a stranglehold on fastest laps at super speedways in Atlanta. But I could be wrong. This is loading slow for me.
I need to select all. Yeah, so Noah Gragson has the all-time highest percentage of fastest laps run in a race. Now, he only ran 23 laps in that race, but he had 8.7% of the fastest laps in a race in the very first Atlanta race with Colleague. So another Colleague there. So I kind of like the dual strategy of betting Noah Gragson to win and betting him to have the most fastest laps, because you're kind of happy either way if he's running towards the front or if he's running towards the mid pack, you know?
Yeah, so looking at the first Atlanta race this year, Stenhouse led the way on fastest laps with 13, Chevy. Chase Elliott with 11, Chevy. Allmendinger, 10, Chevy. Michael McDowell, 10, Chevy.
Yep.
Hocevar, 9, Chevy. Haley, 9, Chevy.
Yep.
Daytona, like you said, Noah Gragson was number 1. That's a Ford, obviously, with 12. Also with 12 was Michael McDowell in a Chevy. Hocevar with 11 in a Chevy. Justin Haley with 8. Dang, that's a lot of Spire fastest laps.
Remember, Spire had problems at Daytona. Michael McDowell had the fuel pickup issues, so he just rode around the back and just kept trying to set fastest laps. And Hocevar had something happen. Haley had something happen. They were all garbage at Daytona, but riding around in the back.
Suarez had 11 in Daytona, Chevy. And then Talladega, Hocevar had 10. Allmendinger had 9.
Yeah.
Ty Gibbs had 6, so there's a Toyota. McDowell had 6. It's another Chevy. Austin Dillon had 9. It's a Chevy.
I like Austin Dillon. I like Austin Dillon 60-1 if we're talking Chevys.
Yep.
So Haley and Dillon, 50 and 60-1 at DK.
I feel like a lot
of
these
Suarez 50-1.
I feel like a lot of these longer shots, it's and you did this. I think you did it at Daytona earlier this year. You just kind of bet them all. Like,
yeah,
when they're
Eric
giving
Jones, I love Eric Jones
odds.
80-1 too. He has races where he just spikes in fastest laps.
Yep. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to definitely hit Austin Dillon as well. I must have missed him when I was looking at everything. But looking at Atlanta races, so 7 races at Atlanta, average fastest laps. Hocevar only has 3 races here, but he's averaging 10.3 per race, which is the highest. Josh Berry is averaging 8.5, as is SVG. Neither of those competed in all 7. Of the guys that have competed in all 7, Justin Haley leads the way at 7.857 fastest laps per Atlanta race. After that, it's Chase Briscoe, AJ Allmendinger, Ross Chastain. So Chevy, you said Barry was in a Chevy in that one race, so partially Chevy. SVG, Haley, Allmendinger, Chastain. All
you know
Chevys.
Who had a good chunk of fastest laps in the first Atlanta this year?
Who?
Cody Ware had 7, but he only ran 183 laps. He was involved in that lap 183 incident. He actually had the 4th most percentage of fastest laps.
Also, he ran last fall here at Atlanta, and he also had 7 in that race.
He ran a full race in that one. But yeah, if you're looking at most fastest laps, I don't hate Cody Ware 80-1. He was 4th earlier this year in terms of, like I said, percentage. And had he not been in that incident, that lap 183 incident, that also got JJ Yaley and Cole Custer, who also were in the top 10 in percentage of fastest laps. Yeah. So if we look at the top 10, it's Chevy, in terms of percentage of laps they ran from earlier this year, Atlanta. Chevy, Ford, Chevy, Ford, I think is the top 10. Yeah, that's 10. So it's all Chevys and Fords. Ty Gibbs was 11th in a Toyota. Stenhouse, Elliott, Keselowski, Ware, Allmendinger, McDowell, Hocevar, Haley, Yaley, Custer, in terms of percentage of laps they ran. So if Haley, Yaley, well, not Yaley, he's not racing this time, but like if those, if the Yaleys or the Wares or the LaJoys run the whole race, and Corey LaJoy's always been a spike fastest lap guy as well, although he didn't earlier this year at Atlanta, but he has had some spikes before. You know, these, I would look at, I mean, Eric Jones 80 is ridiculous, but like I would definitely look more towards the Chevys and the Fords than the Toyotas.
Speaking of Corey LaJoy, he is in the 01 car this week for Rick Ware Racing. Saw a comment here earlier. So Get that show up. So Keselowski said post-race after Pocono that they're very optimistic for Atlanta because RFK is bringing an entirely new car and setup that they're very excited about. So just something interesting to tuck in the back of your hat there. Whether it'll be a difference or not, but
Rick Ware doesn't have the RFK Alliance anymore, does it? I thought it was Haas now.
I'm not 100% sure.
I know Haas does. I just don't believe Rick Ware has the Alliance anymore. Yeah, I don't think there's an alliance between them now. Last year there was.
The only connection to him is Rick Ware. They leased the charter to RFK.
Yeah, no. Last year they definitely had an alliance. This year there's no alliance, as far as I'm aware. But Haas does have an alliance with
RFK. Here's a good question. Like I said, this was a night race. Would night racing make it more calm with more grip and less passing, or maybe more likely for one likely for one main dominator? And then the second comment is, or does it punch a bigger hole in the air and make for more chaos?
Remains to be seen. We also don't know how
Right.
Atlanta is wearing. Atlanta wears the track surface itself. Yeah. So it's tough to say. I can see both being possible.
Mm-hmm.
I would think it could punch a bigger hole in the air because of the density, making the draft bigger, but who knows? The effect of the draft bigger, I'm saying. So tough to say.
I just hope racing at night doesn't ruin Atlanta too.
Didn't Suarez win at night in Atlanta?
That race. I feel like the race
chaos.
Yeah.
I would probably lean more towards chaos, but I don't know for sure.
The good news is, knock on wood, no rain in the forecast. Although there is rain in the forecast on Friday.
Everybody was like,
right.
"Oh, I saw." So my wine about it, which I never did, but by the way, I'm drinking mimosa again. Is how everybody was like, "Oh, I know where the rain is. Just follow NASCAR." This is only the second race all year that was rain impacted. People are acting like it's every week still. No, that was last year. This year,
it's an easy joke to make for people.
Yeah, but this year's been almost no rain, especially for the Cup Series. Yeah. And it was a good rain because it let me watch IndyCar, then watch NASCAR instead of being on at the same time.
Yeah.
So there's my wine.
All right.
I live about once.
I don't have a wine about it this week. So, but yeah, as always, check out. Yeah, at the beginning I did. As always, though, check out LuvaBella, LuvaBella.com, the brew kettle, everything. You got anything else for Atlanta before we go to our picks?
No.
All right. So despite us, we'll get to the DraftKings here in a while because I was wowed at the results from that. But picks to win, my bad luck streak is back in full force. I had William Byron, who, as we talked about, finished 27th after hitting head on in practice in the inside wall. My streak is now 4 straight races outside of the top 10, 3 straight races of 27th or worse for my picks to win. Just cannot get any colder right now. You had, you had Larson at Pocono. He finished 7th. Average finish now, you have 3 wins. Your average finish is 12.29. Mine is 15.76. So I think the question now is, who am I going to jinx for Atlanta? Who would I like to put the hex on this week? Let me see. I'm going to go. Give me I need like a coin or something. Give me I'm gonna go Joey Logano.
There you go.
And that's strategic because I want him to be jinxed because I think he's going to be high owned in DFS.
Yep. I agree. It's my pick to win. I'm gonna pick a new winner this week. Like a new on the season winner.
David Starr.
Absolutely not. I sent you on Twitter a DM. I know you saw it, but
yeah.
My model's median finish for David Starr this week is 33.5. His ceiling, which is the finish he beats 15% of the time, is 27. And his peak finish in 10,000 races, his peak finish was 14th. So there's the David Starr model. So I'm not picking him to win. I'm going to take Tyler Reddick to win.
At first, I was going to be like, what are you talking about? A new winner. And then I remembered Tyler Reddick has not won this year.
Chase Elliott's not won. Tyler Reddick's not won. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like that. I could see that happening for sure.
Right, Tyler Reddick, I believe, is like 30 to 1 at Circa or something like that.
You know what I couldn't believe? And it's probably just because like we're all ingrained that Denny Hamlin is so good at super speedways. He's 20 to 1 at most books this week.
I have Tyler Reddick over Denny Hamlin in my model.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, generally speaking, like when we get to
no, I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like Reddick's, he's 22 at DK and Hamlin's 18. I just have that open in front of me, but I actually have Reddick favored over Denny Hamlin in terms of like outright odds because he's been better than Hamlin in the next gen car at drafting races.
I'm switching my pick to Hamlin. I don't know. I have a weird feeling that like all of a sudden we're not talking about Hamlin on a super speedway and he's going to go and win it.
I mean, that's a very Denny Hamlin thing to do. I agree, but
right. Like
I like Tyler Reddick this week too. I like them all this week. I mean, everybody could win. I did a random.org and got John Hunter Nemechek.
I like that too. I think that would make me happy if that.
But not as a pick to win.
Is that going to be your 36 for 36?
I'm going to go with the number 41 car of Cole Custer.
That's a good pick.
You actually picked him for Atlanta 1. You picked him first, Atlanta.
Yeah. And I got 1 point out of him. So for those that have been following the show, I finally got off my ass and updated a spreadsheet so we know who we have and haven't picked. And we have a point total now. I need to double check and make sure this is all correct. But if this is all correct, currently I'm sitting, I know mine is correct at 418 because I double checked it with my entry on NASCAR.com.
Yeah.
So I have 418, right? I have Nick at 388. And again, like I said, we got where I have the where Nick knows if he's picked someone or not. It only took me It only took me 18 races to get this going. So all right. Who should I pick? 36 for 36. It's got to be a shit box. With the fastest laps talk, you got me talked into Cody Ware. So give me Cody Ware.
Yep, love it. He's who I picked for Daytona. So.
Yep. It was between here and Darlington for me to pick Cody Ware. So
Exactly. Darlington, of course.
Yeah, when we go to Darlington, that's my first thought is Cody Ware. Oh shit. All right. So we got picks to win. We got 36 for 36. DraftKings last week. You and I had wildly different lineups. After practicing qualifying, they were very, I would say, weird builds with how practice and qualifying ended up. Amazingly, they ended up within 1.25 points of each other. I eked out the win. They both cashed, by the way. They both cashed in the $3 tournament. I got $10 back on it, so they both made $5. I ended up 222.85. You ended up 221.6. So I ended a 4-race streak of losing to you with a tiny victory. Points on the season now, you're at 3394.65. I'm at 3277.45. And now we just got an absolute random.org kind of week with not knowing practice and qualifying.
Yeah.
Or not even practice. Sorry, there's no practice at Atlanta without knowing qualifying in the starting lineup this week. Let's see here. I'm literally going to close my eyes and just click buttons, I think.
I love it.
All right. Looks like I'm going Kyle Busch. I'm going Riley Herbst. Chase Elliott. Austin Dillon. Noah Gragson. C-Bell. No rhyme or reason at all. Random clicks got me to this lineup. Kyle Busch, Riley Herbst, Chase Elliott, Austin Dillon, Noah Gragson, Christopher Bell.
That's amazing. I was doing the same thing. You ready for mine?
Yeah, just a second. Did you just randomly click stuff, or
I would say I randomly clicked everything except one driver.
What is this DraftKings lottery? I've never seen that. It says it's new.
Seen that.
See that
yeah, I saw that. I saw that earlier today, but I don't know what it is. I haven't clicked on it yet.
I'm gonna have to look into it. Love me a good lottery.
The only one that locked in was the guy that I got on random.org, which was John Hunter Nemechek.
Okay.
And then I random clicked from there.
Get this to load here. Okay, John Hunter Nemechek, you said?
Yep.
Where the hell's he at?
He doesn't exist.
Yeah, right? All right.
Go all the way to the top, and we'll work down in dollars. So, Denny Hamlin. Ross Chastain.
I can't believe you're going with Hamlin after I just jinxed him. Also,
that was a random clip.
I'm calling it right now because, okay, his starting positions at Atlanta and the next gen, he's never qualified or started better than 13th. And with him at $9,500, he's going to be massively owned.
Yeah.
If that happens again. But, okay, you got Hamlin, Chastain.
Bubba Wallace. Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Yep.
Eric Jones.
I wish I had Stenhouse. Yep. That's solid.
I had some good random clicks.
That is for sure. All right, we got those locked in. Looking at first Atlanta race of the year, you won by 114 points on the DraftKings. Talladega, you won by 18 points. So you're 2-0 over the last super speedways.
take it. Going 3-0.
All right. That's all I got for Atlanta. You got anything else?
That's all for me.
Sorry. EchoPark Speedway.
No, you said it right the first time.
Yeah. All right. Good luck this week to everybody. Enjoy watching Denny Hamlin blow an engine on lap 7. We'll be back next week to talk about Sonoma. Is it Sonoma?
Yeah.
No,
Chicago.
Chicago Street Course. All right. See you guys.
See ya.